The mission to Jupiter began with excitement and fear. The crew aboard the research ship Stormseeker knew they were heading toward the largest and most dangerous planet in the solar system. Jupiter was a world of storms, giant hurricanes bigger than Earth, lightning strikes stronger than nuclear blasts, and winds that moved faster than any aircraft ever built. But the team wasn't just here to study storms. They were here to understand a strange mystery. For months, scientists on Earth had detected unusual energy waves coming from Jupiter's Great Red Spot. These waves behaved like sound, even though space had no air. They repeated in a pattern, forming something that almost felt like a melody, a song. And that song wasn't just coming from Jupiter. It seemed to be traveling toward its moon Europa, a frozen world hiding a deep, dark ocean under its icy shell. As Stormseeker approached Jupiter, the crew stared in awe. The planet filled the entire window, swirling with red, orange, and white colors. The Great Red Spot spun slowly, like an ancient eye watching them. Then it happened. Their ship's sensors detected the first wave. A deep hum. Soft, slow, calm. The commander placed a hand on the console. The vibration was gentle but powerful, like a distant drumbeat echoing through the ship's hull. "Is that the storm singing?" one astronaut whispered. The scientists checked the readings carefully. "It's not natural wind, not lightning. This is something else." The hum repeated, rising and falling in perfect rhythm. The crew listened in silence as the melody traveled through space, reaching Europa's direction like an invisible signal. "That's music," the scientist said softly. "A pattern too perfect to be random." As they moved closer to Europa, the sensors picked up another strange signal, coming from the icy moon itself. A faint vibration, higher pitch, shorter pulses. Europa was responding. "That's impossible," the commander said. "Ice doesn't react to sound." But the readings didn't lie. Europa's ice shell was vibrating at the same rhythm as Jupiter's storm. The two worlds were communicating, one made of fire and storms, the other of ice and silence. The crew watched as Europa grew larger on the screen. The frozen surface looked calm and peaceful, but something beneath it was awake. The scientist whispered, "Jupiter sings," and Europa answers. The commander stared at the moon with a rising chill. And if they are speaking, who are they speaking to? The question hung in the air as Stormseeker prepared to send a probe through Europa's ice. The song of ice and fire had only begun. Stormseeker entered Europa's orbit with silent engines and tense hearts. The frozen moon looked peaceful from above, white plains, blue cracks, and endless ice stretching in every direction. But now the crew knew the truth. Europa wasn't silent. It was listening. The strange melody coming from Jupiter's Great Red Spot continued to pulse through space. Slow, deep waves that shook the ship like a quiet heartbeat. But the real shock came from Europa. The moon answered. Sensors detected small tremors across Europa's icy shell, each one matching Jupiter's melody perfectly. The vibrations were too precise to be natural. The scientist stayed at her screen. Europa is reacting in rhythm, almost like it understands a song. As the Stormseeker circled low, the ice surface began to change. Soft glows appeared inside the cracks, blue, green, and even faint purple light shining from deep within. The commander frowned. "Are those chemical reactions?" "No," the scientist whispered. "These lights are forming patterns." The glowing cracks started to rearrange themselves, not physically, but visually. The lights inside them brightened in shifting sequences, creating designs that looked almost like symbols. The crew watched in silence as the lights formed a spiral, then a wave shape, then a long curve, like a musical note stretching across the ice. It was as if Europa's ocean was singing back through the frozen shell. Suddenly, the ship's receivers picked up a new sound, not from Jupiter this time. A high-pitched hum. Faster, sharper, thinner. Europa just sent its own pulse, the scientist shouted. The two signals overlapped, Jupiter's deep hum and Europa's sharp echo. Together, they created a strange harmony, rising and falling like two ancient voices communicating across space. The commander stepped back, goosebumps on his arms. This is not weather. This is not geology. This is intelligence. Stormseeker launched a small under-ice probe. It approached the surface crack, cutting through the ice slowly with a heated drill. As soon as the probe entered the crack, The lights pulsed brighter. "It's welcoming us," an astronaut whispered. But then something unexpected happened. The glow inside the crack shifted into a straight line, pointing downward, toward the deep ocean under the ice. The probe sank deeper. The water around it shimmered with floating particles, moving gently like drifting snow. Then the particles changed direction. They moved toward the probe. Slowly, gracefully, organized. "They are guiding it," the scientist said. "Europa want to show us something." A final pulse came from the deep, louder than before. Europa had heard the song, and now it was answering with its own. The under-ice probe sank deeper into Europa's ocean, following the glowing particles that moved like tiny spirits in the dark water. Storm Seeker watched every second through trembling cameras. Europa's ocean was pitch black, silent, endless, and yet filled with a strange energy, as if every drop of water carried memory. The deeper the probe went, the more the glowing particles changed. They no longer drifted freely. Now they moved with rhythm. They spun in circles, then in long waves, then in tight spirals. Like a dance, the scientists leaned forward. These are not natural currents. They are arranged patterns. The particles formed 3 bright rings around the probe. Each ring pulsed at a different speed, one slow, one medium, one fast, like 3 voices singing in harmony. Then the rings merged into a line pointing downward, deeper into the darkness. "They want us to follow," the commander murmured. The probe continued descending. Suddenly, a deep vibration rolled through the water, not violent, but powerful, like a drumbeat rippling across an entire ocean. Boom, boom, boom. The glowing particles responded instantly. They gathered together in massive swarms, forming long, curving shapes in front of the probe. When the probe's lights hit them, the shapes shimmered like underwater shadows made of pure light. "Those look like notes," the scientist whispered, "like music written in light." The probe scanned the shapes, and the computer translated the patterns into sound. A haunting melody filled the Storm Seeker cabin, a soft, rising song made not by instruments, but by an entire ocean. The crew froze. It felt ancient, sad, beautiful. "The ocean is singing," an astronaut said, breathless. But the melodies suddenly shifted. The glowing notes moved faster, sharper, forming jagged shapes. The sound became deeper, darker, like a warning. Europa was trying to say something. Before the team could analyze it, the sonar blared. A massive structure appeared on the screen, far below the probe. Tall pillars, wide arches, a huge dome rising from the ocean floor. An underwater city. The crew stared at the image in disbelief. "Who built this?" the commander whispered. The glowing particles rushed toward the city, lining its edges with bright waves of light. They moved in perfect motion, like a choir directing the probe's attention to the ancient structure. The melody changed again, softer, almost pleading. The scientist translated the pattern slowly, trembling. "It's saying, 'We are here. We remember. Come.'" The under-ice choir grew louder. Europa was alive. Europa had a voice. Europa had a story to tell. And the probe was about to hear the next verse. While Storm Seeker focused on Europa's singing ocean, another moon in the Jovian system erupted with violent chaos. Io, the most volcanic world in the entire solar system. Io had always been wild, but today, something was different. The Io observation probe orbited above its surface when the first warning arrived. A bright flash, a sudden tremor, then a volcanic explosion so powerful it lit up space like a small sun. The scientist monitoring Io almost dropped her headset. This eruption, its timing matches Europa's melody. The crew turned toward the screen, showing Io. Lava fountains shot kilometers into the air. Streams of molten fire race across the moon's surface, glowing like rivers of gold. "It's beautiful," an astronaut whispered. "Beautiful and dangerous," the commander replied. The probe recorded something even stranger. When the lava fell back to the ground, it didn't spread randomly. It landed in patterns, straight lines, half circles, jagged marks, the same shapes the under-ice probe had seen in Europa's ocean. "Europa sings in water," the scientist said slowly. "Io sings in fire." The crew fell silent. Then Io shook harder. A second eruption followed, bigger, louder, so bright it blinded the cameras for a moment. When the view returned, the crew gasped. The lava from this eruption formed a giant glowing arc across the surface, pointing directly toward Europa. "It's signaling," the commander whispered, just like Europa did. The lava arc pulsed, bright, dim, bright, following the same rhythm Europa's ocean had used earlier. Meanwhile, Europa's under-ice probe picked up a new vibration. Stronger, sharper, it echoed Io's volcanic pulse perfectly. "They are communicating," the scientist said, "across space, across moons." Another eruption burst from Io, this time releasing a plume of gas that twisted upward into a spiral. The spiral glowed orange and blue, matching the frequency of Jupiter's storm song. Water, fire, storms, all connected. The Io probe detected one more anomaly. At the moon's equator, dozens of active volcanoes erupted at the exact same moment. The molten rivers flowed outward, creating an enormous circular pattern, like a fiery symbol carved into the moon itself. The scientists zoomed in and froze the image. It's the same symbol we saw inside Europa's undercity. The symbol glowed brighter until it faded slowly into the cooling lava. But the message it carried echoed across the storm seeker's cabin. Io was not warning Europa. Io was warning the entire system. A final reading came through. Jupiter's magnetic field was spiking wildly, responding to the fire song from Io. The commander stared at the data in fear. If Europa holds a memory, Io holds a fire, then something threatens both. And the storm song from Jupiter grew louder. Deep beneath Europa's icy shell, the probe drifted toward the massive underwater city. The glowing particles, Europa's light singers, guided it through towering pillars and long curved structures that looked like they were carved by giants. The city was ancient, silent, broken in places, but still alive with faint blue light pulsing through its walls. The closer the probe approached, the stronger the ocean's song became. Soft, haunting hums echoed through the dark water, rising and falling like a forgotten lullaby. The scientists whispered, "These vibrations aren't random. They are coming from the structures themselves, like they are musical instruments." The probe moved deeper into the city, and suddenly an enormous chamber opened before it. A vast dome, perfectly round, lined with symbols that glowed as the probe's light touched them. "This is no city," the commander said softly. "It looks like a memory vault." The walls of the dome vibrated lightly, sending ripples across the water. The glowing symbols rearranged themselves, shifting, pulsing, changing as if they were alive. They formed patterns identical to Io's lava symbols and Europa's ice pulses. All three moons were connected. All three moons were speaking the same language. At the center of the dome stood a large structure, part crystal, part metal, shaped like a giant bowl tilted upward. Its surface vibrated like a drum, producing deep, harmonic tones. "That's the source," the scientist breathed, "the core of the song." The probe circled the structure. Small openings lined its edges, like pipes in a massive instrument. When Europa's ocean vibrated, the structure sang back in powerful harmonics. But then something new happened. A single beam of blue light shot upward from the structure, hitting the dome ceiling. Symbols flooded the walls. The chamber shook softly. Data transfer detected. The engineer said, "It's sending something. A message." The symbols rearranged again, forming shapes of planets, moons, and swirling storms. It was a story, carved in light and sound. A story of a civilization that once lived on Europa, Io, and Ganymede. A civilization that mastered ice, fire, and magnetic energy. And then, something dark entered their system. A shadow-like force, a devourer of heat and light. A cosmic parasite that moved from star to star. The dome's vibration deepened. The symbols flashed red. "The archive is warning us," the scientist said. "This is their history and their last message." The probe inched closer to the core structure. Suddenly, one final symbol appeared, a giant swirling shape pointing outward toward Jupiter. The commander felt chills. "The song is not a memory," he whispered. "It's an alarm." And the alarm had just been triggered. The underwater dome vibrated harder now, its glowing symbols flashing like lightning trapped beneath the ocean. The probe hovered at the center as a chamber filled with a deep, rising hum, no longer just a melody but a voice building itself out of pure sound. Inside Stormseeker, the crew watched in stunned silence. The hum shifted, curving into soft notes, then into sharper pulses, then into something unmistakable. Words, not spoken like a human, but formed through vibration, translated by the probe sensors into a low, ancient voice. Children of the new sun, you hear our last breath. The scientist clutched her headset. It's speaking directly to us. The glowing particles in the water began swirling around the probe, creating a halo of light. The entire city responded, as though awakened by the presence of new life. The voice continued. We shape harmony across the moons. Ice on Europa. Fire on Io. Storm on Jupiter. Images appeared on the dome's walls. Massive floating cities on Europa's surface, volcanic palaces on Io glowing like living embers, and energy towers hanging in Jupiter's atmosphere like lightning-catching spires. It was a civilization unlike anything humans had imagined. The voice darkened. We lived in balance until the darkness came. The walls shifted again, showing a shadow descending over the moons, a cold, starless shape that absorbed light. Storms died. Volcanoes froze mid-eruption. Europa's oceans turned still. It fed on heat. It fed on energy. It fed on the song. The dome trembled. Water swirled into tight circles around the probe. The scientists whispered, the enemy stole their harmony, and that destroyed them. The voice grew softer, almost like mourning. We fought with fire. Io burned bright. We fought with water. Europa sang loud. We fought with storm. Jupiter roared. A final image flashed, Jupiter's great red spot glowing like an open wound. But we failed. The ocean stilled. The lights dimmed. So we left the song as a beacon, a warning, a memory. Then the tone rose again, no longer sad, but urgent. The darkness stays again. You, who come from the distant blue world, you must decide. Silence the song, or strengthen it. Stormseeker's crew looked at each other with fear. Strengthening the song could awaken something powerful. Silencing it could leave the solar system defenseless. The chamber shook violently. Cracks ran through the ancient walls. The probe shuddered. Europa's lost guardian voice whispered, choose, before the void chooses for you. The Song of Ice and Fire had reached its final verse, and humanity had just become part of it. The chamber's final warning still echoed through the water when the first collapse began. Massive cracks spread across the dome. Ancient pillars groaned like giants waking from stone. The glowing symbols flickered, struggling to stay alive. The Stormseeker crew watched helplessly. The structure is failing, the scientists whispered. We're losing the city. The probe tried to retreat, but the swirling currents pulled it deeper into the collapsing chamber. Glowing particles rushed past like frightened birds scattering before a storm. The ancient voice returned, faint now, as if fading with the dying walls. The song held our world together. Ice, fire, storm. One melody, one shield. Another crack tore through the dome, releasing a massive plume of shimmering water. But the darkness shattered our harmony. The probe's camera caught one last image of the ancient carvings, three symbols intertwined. The flame of Io, the wave of Europa, and the spiral of Jupiter's storms. Now the harmony is yours to protect. The chamber collapsed completely. A giant plume of water shot upward, and the probe was thrown violently through the dark ocean. Europa trembled. New cracks opened on the ice above, glowing brightly like blue veins. Europa's crust is reacting, the engineer shouted. But something else was happening too. Jupiter's great red spot began to swell faster on the Stormseeker screens. Lightning flashed inside it. The storm responded to Europa's awakening. Io erupted again, fiery towers rising into space, matching Europa's new pulses. Across millions of kilometers, all three moons were singing at once. Ice, fire, storm, the final harmony. The scientist decoded the overlapping waves. Her voice shook. They are forming a shield, a massive energy pattern around Jupiter. The commander stared at the swirling data. They're preparing for the darkness. Suddenly, the space behind Jupiter flickered. Just for a second, a patch of sky dimmed unnaturally, like something enormous moved between the stars. The scientists whispered, horrified, "The void, it's already near." Europa's ocean pulsed once more, louder than ever before. It felt like a heartbeat, a cry, and a command together. Protect your star. The Storm Seeker received one last message from the dying undersea archive. Not a sound, not a vibration. A symbol, the same symbol Io burned into its surface. The same symbol carved beneath Europa's ocean. The same symbol hidden in Jupiter's storms. A call to unite. A warning to prepare. A torch passed to humanity. The storm song faded. Europa fell silent. Io cooled. Jupiter's great ice slowed. The harmony had been handed over. Now humanity had to decide whether they would let the melody die, or rise and become the new guardians of ice and fire.